Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show. And I am delighted, as always, to welcome you here today to our stage in the internet world of TV. Go figure. Anyway, we're really excited to have you, and I know that your time is precious. And so each and every week, we love to bring you the most interesting stories, personal stories, technologies, software, anything that can educate us, that will help to just help us grow, right? I don't even like to use the word empower anymore, but I'd like to say that breaks us free so that we have the most fulfilling life, the most fulfilling business, family, communities that we possibly have. And that's what we do here. We show you what's going on in the world amongst your brothers and your sisters, amongst friends, families, people doing things that you never would have imagined, or maybe you did imagine, but you just didn't know it could be done. And so we bring you people that are doing it. So with that, I want to first say hi to Amnon.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm just fine.
Yes, you've been busy over there.
Yeah, I've been busy. This is a little bit
It's a
out
little
of the usual,
tricky.
yeah.
Yes, yes,
But
yes. So
everything's fine.
everything is good. So Amnon is our producer, and he's over there keeping the technology straight. And I want to invite anyone out there that as the show progresses, goes on, any point in time, you are welcome to engage with us. You can call in to the studio if you have a phone, 919-518-9773, or you can come in on Skype, voice. So it wouldn't be video, it would be voice, and that is at computers, that's plural, two, the number two, K voice. Computers 2K voice. And we also have a chat. So if you'd like to engage with me or my guests, you can do it in the chat. You can sign in. You can put your nickname. It doesn't matter. Write a question, a comment, whatever you like, because this show is about all of us communicating together. That's how we'll leave here with a personal experience. And when we do that, that's when we can change the world. So with that, I want to introduce my guest to you today. We have Michael Taylor. Hey, Michael.
Hey, Marilyn.
How you doing?
Doing fantastic. Really excited to be on your show. I love the title, Breaking Free, because that's what transformational work is about. It's about breaking free from perceived limitations and living extraordinary lives. So really excited about being here today.
Well, I'll drink to that. And then we have Tom Kelly. Hey, Tom.
Hi, how you doing?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Great.
Ready to go.
Cool. I'm ready to have us go. And I just a little. I want each of our gentlemen to share a little bit about themselves, but I do want to say that I am in the process of writing a book about men, and it's about really understanding men, not from a woman's perspective, just about men and evolving and waking up. And I'm delighted to say that Michael has shared a story with us, which will be in the book. So be on the lookout for this book to come out sometime soon. That's all I can say. I'm still looking for some more stories. So and we all have them. So anyone out there that is listening, if you have a story that you are comfortable sharing about how you have evolved, how you have awakened, how you are seeing the world, your message to other men, please feel free to connect with me at marilynshannon.com. So with that, let me start with Michael. I'm going to do M before T, and just tell us, Michael, some things about yourself.
Well, first of all, I am an irrepressible optimist with a passion for the impossible. And I am just absolutely passionate about men's work. So that's why I'm really excited about being on this show today. I am a motivational speaker, author of 4 books, radio and television host, and just really enjoy challenging people, especially men, to live extraordinary lives.
Perfect. And just say, you're doing that how?
Doing well.
And how are you doing that? Yeah, just a little, how are you doing that? How are you having that work happen?
I have an online radio program that I've had for the past 10 years called A New Conversation with Men, which is based on a book of the same title. I also hosted a cable television show here in Houston, Texas, of the same name, A New Conversation with Men, in which I interviewed men and talked to men and women who are empowering men to live extraordinary lives. Okay. And as mentioned, I continue to write and speak and do what I am passionate about, which is empowering men.
Okay, perfect. Tom, you got the floor.
Awesome.
What about you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is exciting. I would do this first almost out of any kind of business thing. This is great, and I love being on with Michael. I consider him kind of a enthusiasm and audacity mentor to me. So we've known each other for 4 or 5 years. So I am a counselor and coach. I live just north of New York City, and I'm a husband to the most wonderful woman on earth, Lisa, and a father to Leela, a 7-year-old girl who's just the best. And what I do is I coach and counsel men to in various ways. There's counsel. I say counsel and coach because there's a lot of deep dives we have to do before we get to any kind of coaching, the dredging per se. And I've been running men's circles for 5 or 6 years, and I do men's programs through a organization called Open, Deep, and True. So you can find it at opendeepandtrue.com. And I guess for a little background, I was raised a jock. I was in the Marine Corps. I was in sales organizations. So that kind of got me into men's work, because those are some pretty intense situations with a bunch of men trying to achieve things. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but I took that, and I found myself, when I got into all this spiritual new kind of self-improvement work, a little bit of a rarity in that I came from that world, that kind of closed down, jock, hard edge world. And I enjoyed it. I've spent about 12 years just diving and swimming in the, if you will, feminine side of a lot of this stuff. And so that's where I am now. I'm doing the things I mentioned, and I'm also moving back into the corporate world with a compassionate communication, kind of nonviolent communication program and offering for businesses to soften them up and be more productive. So with that, I'm in.
Good. So we have a lot of things to talk about and a lot of places to go with it. But one of the things I want to ask you is, you mentioned the word audacity. Why? I can't let that go. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, because I was raised to put a cap on my, I was raised. My programming that I experienced was in the closed down jock sales world. Basically, survive, cover your ass, get safe. And in this new incarnation, I have to work at being audacious. And I look to people like Michael and people who don't have any limits. They've broken free, if you will. And they, and I think a lot of men share that with me, in that their experience of the world is, geez, this is difficult. I gotta survive. So being audacious is a big chance. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the fundamental things that I'm working on in myself, and I'm teaching, is just various levels of audacity. I'm having a men's group tonight. The theme is playing your edge. And for each man, that's totally different. But, for a very shut down man, just speaking to someone, a brand new person's audacious. So it's fundamental. And I love the word.
It's interesting because I alluded to the fact that I'm writing this book, and it's because of my experience as a child growing up with a lot of male energy and just not liking the energy I was seeing, not feeling comfortable with the energy I was seeing. And then as I got into being an adult and my practice and, doing some work with men, I began seeing, this isn't, what I thought was not good is not really, there's really so much beauty in men that I just immediately, I saw, men are, and this notion of, this is my feeling, and you might, certainly agree or disagree. But I really feel like, we're not so different. And maybe this thing about men from Mars, women from Venus is a catchphrase, but I think men are waking up to some things that maybe women were a little bit more comfortable with and going, okay, now what? Like, okay, now what do I do? Go
Marilyn,
ahead.
Marilyn,
Go ahead,
let
Mike.
me interject this if I
Yeah,
could.
go ahead.
First of all, it is my belief, and this is Michael Taylor's belief, that the greatest challenge we have in our culture today, in America today, and actually the world, is to redefine masculinity. And what I mean by that is the roles of masculinity are changing drastically, dramatically, and very, very quickly. For example, in the US, for the first time, there are more females in the workforce than males. For the first time in this country's history, there are more females graduating from college than men. So the roles, the way that I see it, the roles are just changing. And unfortunately, a lot of men aren't keeping up with these changing roles. And so a lot of times what happens is, and from my own experience, men will wait until, see, there are two things that cause a man to change. Number one is pain. Number two is what I call divine discontent. And unfortunately, too many men wait until they're in so much pain before they choose to change. And so what I do and what Tom do is we basically help men try to avoid waiting until their life is in complete breakdown, and then give them some new tools to deal with the changing roles of masculinity. And it's actually very challenging because the male paradigm is so rigid that I know, Tom, you may speak to this, but for me, it's amazing how when I started this process, how much resistance I get from men when I start talking about redefining masculinity. Men will put up walls, and it's really difficult for them to really understand that I'm actually trying to support and empower them versus attack them. But men get really defensive because, again, we're trapped in this old masculine paradigm that a lot of men are stuck in. And it takes conversations like this to challenge men to say, you know what? I can relate to that. I understand where he's coming from. I can resonate with that. And that's how you create change. And that's what Tom and I both do. We create dialogue and tools for men to help them transform their lives.
Well, you know, as you were talking, I'm thinking, oh, I have to say this, I have to say this. I think, and from what I'm hearing from both of you, so you're helping to support the change. And the question is, you know, men waiting to be in pain. Well, for a lot of men, and I'm sure you recognize this, is they don't know, you know, the questions to ask. They don't know when to ask the questions. And sometimes it does take for any of us to have pain first. That's why I say breaking free, because free from what? You know, sometimes you have to go through something. And then, yes, the more conversations we have, the more awareness that's out there, the more people talking about things, the more, you know, transparent you are, and the men that you're working with, the more people write books like my book. You know, more people that are having these conversations, the more men begin to realize, oh, I mean, I can be feminine too, like Tom was saying. You know, kids growing up, teenagers growing up, and not being necessarily confused by their sexuality, just that they are emotional, and that's okay. So I love your openness and your vulnerability.
Yes. I use a very simple analogy that a lot of people can understand about this. Is you ask, let's say, a group of 40-year-old men at a bar, do you like to dance? And it's changing a little now, but the answer has generally been maybe 9 of them say, no, I don't like to dance. And I say, okay, now we got someplace to start. Could it be that you don't not like to dance, but it's not available to you? You can't do it. You'd love to be able to just freely go out at a wedding and dance with your girlfriend or wife, but you can't. And I think that when boys grow up, traditionally, if they have 52 cards in their pocket, originally they start just putting the card, nope, dancing's out. Public speaking, being in a play, that's out. Really saying how they feel, that's definitely out, because crying, that's out. And all of a sudden they go into adulthood with 10 cards. And then the pain, but the pain, you know, they're only using 10 cards, so they're okay. They think they're okay. And then when they're 30 and 40, they're like, this stinks. Like I'm so limited. That was my experience.
So when you say unavailable, well, 1 second. So when you say unavailable, what you're referring to is that they don't know how to. So it's not available to them. So in other words, they're throwing out dance, not because there's not a place to go, but because they don't know how to do it. Is that what you're referring to?
No,
Okay,
I mean
explain
that's
that. Go ahead.
that's a offshoot. They don't know how to
Okay.
do it because they didn't let themselves, be free enough to do it. It's more like it's not available because they put it in a room. They got rid of it because it was too painful to. Maybe they tried to and somebody made fun of them, so they said,
Okay.
"Oh, I'm not going there anymore."
Okay, gotcha. Go ahead, Michael. What were you going to say?
So in regards to the book that you mentioned, the men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
Yes.
See, and that's part of the challenge because in my experience, truth be told, men are really no different than women.
I
It's just
agree. Yeah.
we have been conditioned to believe that we are somehow different. So for example, in my one of my books I wrote, A New Conversation with Men, I talk about the 5 illusions of manhood. And the first illusion is that to be a man, you must be non-emotional and disconnected. And see, it is that one illusion that the media has driven from men that keeps them separate from who they really are and out of touch with who they are and their emotions. And so when that book first came out, I remember one of the chapters where he was basically saying men have to go into their caves to deal with the challenges in their lives. And in reality, what he was saying was men didn't know how to deal with their emotions. So what do? They go into a cave and isolate and separate themselves. Well, what I try to do is keep men from going into caves. I try to get men to recognize that, you know what? Don't go into a cave, go into your heart, connect with how you feel, express that. And when you are able to do that, your relationships will work. Don't isolate yourself and run from it. Just deal with it and address it. And so, unfortunately, a lot of men don't have the tools to do that. And that's, once again, why these conversations are so important.
Right. So let me ask you something. Why should a man believe you, Michael?
I'm sorry?
Why should somebody believe you?
Well, I don't think they should believe me. I think they should trust themselves. Here's the thing
Okay, so maybe let me rephrase that. So you're sharing about a heart.
Okay.
But who are you in your life? What have you learned about being in your heart that has benefited you?
Okay, so let's just my first marriage is a perfect example. In my first marriage, I thought that to be a man, it was my responsibility to provide and protect. That was my job. So what did? I worked my tail off. I bought my wife a house. I gave her all the stuff. And so on the outside, it looked like I had everything perfect. But I didn't know how to give her what she needed most, which was me, which was to open my heart, to be vulnerable, to allow her to see me. I basically wanted her to fall in love with my stuff. And so what I've learned through this process is I don't need stuff to be loved. When I met my current wife, who I absolutely love and adore, when I met her, I went in knowing that I wasn't going to try to buy her love. As a matter of fact, on our very first date, I took her to Pizza Hut. And it's a funny story because a lot of her friends told her she shouldn't date me because I took her to Pizza Hut. Well, the point is I got to a point in my life where I recognized that I didn't need stuff outside of me to be loved. And so by doing this work, I knew that when I decided I wanted to remarry, I would marry for the right reasons, which was to find someone that I could share myself and my life with. And I can do that now, and I've been happily married for the last 15 years.
Perfect. And I want to talk a lot about, I don't want to just talk about the pain that men are in. I mean, we know that. I want to talk about how we get out of that, the tools, the feelings that, men can acquire or identify, or the steps. I want to talk about the real, like, what do they do? So, Tom, I want to ask you the same question so that our audience gets to know you a little bit better. But before I do that, I want to again suggest that if anybody wants to call in, man, woman, doesn't matter, please feel free. This is an open forum. This is a campfire where anything is possible. And I love to say I give you a license to talk about anything that you want to here and to feel that you can, because this is a safe space. This is we are people who love and care about people. So any question, any situation, any comment it will be well received. So feel free, 919-518-9773, or you can connect with us on Skype at Computers 2K Voice, and you can also partake in the chat by putting your name next to the video and send it in, and you can ask questions or communicate with us in there. So, Tom, same question to you.
Yeah, you don't have to repeat it because it actually hit me. It was one of the best questions I've heard.
Hmm.
Not so much the first part, like why should they believe you? Because that's like in male culture. Well, why should I believe you? But how is how would somebody feel, or how is my heart, my ability to feel my heart benefited me? Is that
Yeah,
is that
pretty
right?
much, and
Okay.
how how men feel that from you.
Right. You know what? On broadcasts and when I talk sometimes in like when a camera goes and stuff, I start getting triggered sometimes back into the old way, and they probably don't. Like I have talks that I've given where I can actually discern, like, that's just me running some training that I had, saying some stuff. And then there's other times when I can feel, and it's weird, like I'm looking at myself, but I can feel like, yeah, that's coming right from me. And I imagine that others who are ready to feel a little bit are feeling some stuff. There's somebody said in a men's circle, when somebody checks in, it's like the beginning, it's the invitation to just say how you're feeling in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
If they check in with that and say how they're feeling in the moment and say a bunch of words, if other people are interested, then that's a good indication that their heart is open. If they're not in their heart and they're starting to talk about details and words and whatever, people get bored. And I thought, wow, that's right. Like when somebody's talking and they're not connected to their heart, you can tell they're just trying to say some stuff, either get through it or just make up, look a certain way. But when someone's speaking about like their dog dying, you can totally tell because it's fascinating.
Right.
No matter what the words are. So I don't know if
Right.
that answered it, but
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's absolutely you get it. And what I would say for everybody listening, and then I also have a couple of questions from the chat that I want to bring up and some comments. But when you do this, I mean, you do feel what somebody, and the words, you just know it could be a word that you hear, the way the phrase is done, it's the story, whatever it is, and you can tell that we all are, all of us that are, all of us, we are a work in progress. And when you are a work in progress, you are coming from your heart and you share it.
yes. And I
Right?
want to, you
Good.
just helped me define what I was like. I started talking about a men's circle and stuff. Really, the most practical, basic thing is if you're talking to another person and they, let's say they ask you, how you doing? Read it for real. And you say, well, I'm this, I'm that, I'm going through some troubles. If you can still feel them right there, then their heart's available to them. They've kind of gotten somehow to a place. Maybe some of these people don't have to do any work. They're just like amazingly vibrating present people. But for the majority of men who it doesn't come naturally because it's been blocked out, this stuff is basically training on how to be in your body and be available to connect with somebody.
Exactly. And I
Like
don't, yeah.
and people, like I've been told, not 20 years ago, but more recently, when I talk to you, I get the feeling like you're really listening. You're really there. This is great. Like I enjoy saying my stuff to you because you're not somewhere else.
Are you talking about me or are you talking about somebody that you're listening to?
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
Well, you feel the connection.
Yeah.
And we all, I mean, I have this phrase and I say it very often. We all, everyone, I don't care, the toughest, the softest, the whoever. We all ultimately want to be connected, want to be loved, hugged, and rubbed. And it's just a matter of, and in this place of the heart, people say, well, I wear my heart on my sleeve. No, they're not. They're wearing their ego. Don't get them confused. When you wear your heart, when you really are in your heart, you are fine. You are not doing anything to the extreme that you can't handle, or that you can't forgive, or that you don't learn from. It's when you come from your ego wearing your heart on your sleeve. That's not what you're wearing. And then things are excessive and uncomfortable. But in the journey of the heart, it's going to be fine. So and you two are fabulous. I don't think I'm ever going to let you go. So, but let me ask you. So here's one question from Chris. She says, "I'm curious to know whether Tom and/or Michael do any work for themselves and/or their clients with vision quests." So, Michael, why don't you answer that question first? Do you do any vision quests?
I do not facilitate vision quests, although I have gone on vision quests before.
And your experience of them?
Very powerful. The amazing thing about what I'll call transformational work, it's been said that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so when I first started this process, I was doing the motivational, rah-rah, Tony Robbins, let's make $1 million kind of stuff, just really motivated by that. But once I moved to my heart and really got to that place where I wanted to connect with my true self, for lack of a better term, it started guiding me to some amazing experiences. One being a vision quest in which I had one experience that I can only call it transcendent, in this experience where I was actually out in nature, and there was an exercise that we were supposed to do where we were just sitting there remembering the most joyful time we'd ever experienced. And so I'm all alone in the forest, and I'm just trying to think back of a joyful time in my life. And as I was sitting out there thinking about this, I got real quiet, real still, nature all around me, just a beautiful setting. And as I was thinking about the joy that I felt, that feeling started coming back up, this joyful aliveness that I hadn't felt in a really, really long time. And as I sat there and just allowed that feeling to just bubble up, this joy literally exploded in my heart. And I sat there, all I could do was just cry for like 30 minutes. It was just this beautiful, amazing feeling. And that would not have been possible if I had not done my inner work, if I had not healed some of the stuff that would keep me from that. And that was one of the powerful lessons that I got from doing this vision quest, in which it allowed me to connect with that joy that had been suppressed in me.
It's perfect. And so for all the men, women, young men, teenagers, anybody that's listening to this now, when you have these experiences and your heart opens up, there is this feeling that is undeniable, and it's not bad. It takes over, and it's not bad. And you know when you're there. Know it. You will know when it's good and it's all for good. You're there. You know it. It's not hurtful. You're not going to hurt somebody. You're not hurting yourself. You can distinguish pretty well when you're there. So, Michael, that was perfect. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
But let me share this too. But
yeah.
When I first started this process, I had gone through a divorce, a bankruptcy, foreclosure, before I did any of this emotional work. And here's an amazing thing. I went to a therapist, and this therapist gave me this picture of the faces with the feelings. You've seen the pictures where you've got a feeling that's happy, a feeling that's sad, a picture of sad and so forth. And I remember specifically, she was asking me to try to connect with how I feel. And she was pointing to the pictures and telling me, okay, so how do you feel when you see this? And I was completely disconnected.
Right.
I started trying to think through what she was telling me, and I couldn't feel. I honestly couldn't feel what the pictures represented because my heart was completely closed. And so by going through this process, it allowed me to open my heart and be able to be in touch with my emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's thank you. Tom,
Yes.
how do we teach, we have a question here. How do we teach this? How do you teach this to men and boys? I mean, what's one of the, how do you open up? I mean, what we're being asked here by Katie, is it to her, it seems that our culture is becoming more macho, not less macho. So what do you say to that?
Wow. You said something earlier about talking to us forever, and I feel the same way. Like there's about 5 windows open now in my brain, and I want to go back
All
to
right, so go ahead, go back.
yeah. So with the vision quests, I've had some experience with with working with shaman in South America, like using plant medicine to do vision quests, and in the past 3 years or so, I've apprenticed, facilitated 2 different vision quests, one with adults and one with 13, I think 12 to 14-year-old boys, which is exactly where in the old times the initiation occurred. And they were amazing. And what the biggest thing that they do is they break you automatically out of your self, and you can't help but get connected to something much greater than yourself. And for a lot of people, that's a rare thing. It's like, it's freaky. And you know, a lot of people get by themselves and feel everything and freak out. But the one thing that's really come clear to me is I used to divide my life in between that jock Marine thing and then this spirituals thing. Football in high school was a form of initiation and a form of vision quest. When the coach would sit us in the end zone and give his pregame talk, my coach was basically a shaman. Like he was just a football coach and a history teacher, but man, he could transport you during a talk to, like, you'd have goosebumps. I would cry sometimes. And you know, he made it so much more about what was happening there. And you felt you merged into the whole team and you left yourself. And even in the Marines, there's in Vision Quest, there's a classic arc that happens. There's people have different theories, but there's always a separation, a descent, a, you know, kind of hell, and then a rise. And that's what a Marine boot camp is in their own way. So I've seen it from all different sides. And now, how can people? Your second question: how do people get it now?
Mm-hmm.
They can either go right towards it to vision quests, or I don't know how Michael feels about this, but I'm told a lot. You got to reach the boys before they get to be troubled men, and that's probably true. But there are a lot of people doing this work with young kids and with teenagers. I'm amazed how almost daily I find a new person doing this, or a new group, which is so encouraging. So there's a lot of that, and I have thought, but for now, I think that that sweet spot of 35 to 60, the men who, and I hope we get into this, like, let's take the whole subsection of men 35 to 60 American, and you could break it up. Some are never gonna step forward. Some are really evolved and already doing this, but there's this massive part, and I think that it's almost like everyone doing this work should take a piece and work with that. So,
and that's interesting, because, and thank you for saying that, because whatever piece, whoever you are, Katie, whoever you are, there's Bonnie on here, and I haven't read Bonnie's yet. Chris, Michael, Tom, Marilyn, I'm not sitting here. Everybody out there, Susan, Johnny, Beth, everybody out here, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever your name is, whatever that you're included in that. You take a piece. You speak nicely to people. You recognize that what we're saying is men. And you just said that some will never get it. Maybe not. Maybe they'll get a seed. But everybody can get something. And so it's all of our duties to speak kindly to each other and to recognize the fact that, you know, we all have the ability and connection to a heart. It might be further away than others, but it's there. Trust me. And the nicer we are to each other, the more connected we are, we're all doing the work. And we need everybody's awareness. And I don't believe, this is just my personal opinion from what I'm seeing, that it's more macho. I don't believe that. I believe that there that people like Michael and that these and Tom, this is being done, and I don't believe it's going in the wrong direction. I believe it's going in the right direction. So,
Well, Marilyn,
yeah,
if I could also
go ahead.
speak to that just a little bit,
Go ahead.
because I started writing about men's issues back in 1995. And back in 1995, there were very few resources specifically for men. The primary book at the time was a book called Iron John by a guy named Robert Bly. He's
Right.
Some people call him the father of the men's movement.
Yep.
There was Iron John, and there was a book called Fire in the Belly by Sam King. Two wonderful resources. But I remember specifically when I'd go to the bookstores and I'd look on the shelves for books for men, there were very few books available in 95. You go out there now, there are literally tons and tons of books talking about men's issues. There are tons of men's coaches now that are talking about these issues. So I don't believe we're becoming more macho. I personally believe men are starting to wake up now. Mm-hmm. Men are really ready to shift the male paradigm. And it's people like Tom and myself who are courageous enough to say, hey, look, there's a wonderful saying that says that a leader doesn't say, follow me. A leader says, I'll go first. And so people like Tom and I who went first and has done this work, basically what we're doing is we're trying to reach back to say, hey guys, look, this is what we've done. This is what we've benefited from, and see if you can apply it to your life to make your life better. And I say that there are a lot more men that are doing that now than there were just even 5 years ago. So I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
And there's this, we have a saying in my family, the first one who brings up Trump loses. So,
Why does that crack me up?
Then I lose because I think it's appropriate here, because what your questioner, the person who asked the question about is it becoming more macho, a lot of times, well, I think Trump is a reaction to, well, I don't just think, a lot of people think he's a reaction to everything getting more even, and as far as ethnicity in the country, and it's, you know, the angry white man who had control the whole time is not going to be the case, and this is a last-ditch effort to hang on to it. It might be that the macho that she sees is not last ditch, but it's a twitch from men who aren't on board saying, screw that. Like it was really good the old way when I could just have my way. But I think it's not getting more macho. There's evidence all over the place. Mm-hmm. When the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl, this article 2 years ago, this article came out about how they have counselors on staff. They have they don't have their locker room is a very civilized locker room. Their coach talks to the people. If you're hurt, you're hurt. They do meditation. They do meditation, exactly, and they dominated. So, and I could come up with all kinds of instances of, well, Obama's a good example. I mean, he is a thoughtful, soft-spoken person, and you could look all around, but you could also find examples of increasing macho.
Well, I guess and that was a good point, because the softer things get, the more you notice some other things. They stick out like a sore thumb.
Yep. So
I really do agree with you in what you just said, and I'm so happy you said that and you brought it up, because that's a very good point. And so that's why you do the work you do. If you don't see the hope out here, it's hard to do the work. But I am constantly reminded of the hope out here, and that's what fuels me to keep moving forward, and just knowing that there's going to be an ear, there's going to be a heart, and there's going to be an ear that's going to listen and that will know. And I can only talk to the people, to the knowing, and to the little knowing, and to the lot knowing, and whoever. I'm just talking to them. So here's another one, and this is from Bonnie, and you're both fabulous. So when I said before, I'm not letting you go, I meant it. So please let them know that some females have compassion for their conditioning. Question for Michael: being able to have compassion for males does not make dealing with the attitudes they developed in lieu of expressing emotions. Can he suggest how to circumvent the attitudes in a way to allow successful interaction?
So I'm assuming she's targeting it towards men, or she's looking at it from a female perspective.
Well, I guess from a female's perspective, understanding that this is that how men have been conditioned, how would you suggest women deal with the attitudes that, and I'm guessing this is what she's saying, and maybe she can elaborate some more, but you know what happens when people are holding on to something and they're afraid of letting it go, even though they're soft and mushy and kind and have their feminine energy about them. They burst out, they do things that are not necessarily in conjunction with or a representation of how they truly are feeling, right?
Right.
So how do we deal with what we see as opposed to what there really is?
Well, see, and this comes back to what we said initially, in that I personally don't think men and women are different. And so when I look at, or you hear a lot of times women say they want a man who's open and vulnerable and sensitive, and they say all these wonderful things that they like to see. But when that man shows up, it can be a shock to the female system, because I know that I've been rejected by women because they said I was too sensitive, or I guess the term is they call the new age wimp, or the new age guy.
Snag. Sensitive new age guy.
Sensitive new age guy. But the point here is that for the female that asked the question, I still come back to who am I and how I'm reacting to whatever situation shows up for me. And so I have to be willing to look at how I'm showing up in the world, because I react to what's happening to me that really matters. And so if my heart is closed, I'm going to have a wall or keep distance and not allow myself to get close to people. It's an automatic defense. But if I'm willing to trust and surrender and let those walls come down, then I'm open to experiencing other people, other experiences in a different way. And so what I try to do is always keep my heart open, because I know that I'm strong enough to deal with anything that comes my way. But at the same time, I don't let preconceived beliefs and ideas shape whoever's in front of me. So when I'm dealing with women, for example, I did a lot of work around sexism, and how when I see women, I had these preconceived ideas about what women are supposed to be like. Well, I had to change that. And that was some inner work that I had to do. So each person, I think, has to be willing to look within their own minds and hearts and see how they're reacting to the men and women that show up in their lives.
Tom, did you have something else to say to that? Because I do. But I want to give you first crack at it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm not sure I understood the question and where she, there's so much to it, but, and not to be tongue in cheek, but my advice would be take 3 big, long breaths. Like, no matter what she meant, just if she's asking for what to do, how to circumvent that bad attitude when it's coming at you, then just try to calm herself down. She can try to calm herself down the best she can, and then employ all the things that we try to employ, which is listening, actually seeing the person. But yeah, I would like to know what you thought of that, but I didn't quite get what the angle was she was talking about.
Well, I think, as we've said, what she's saying is exactly that. Like, when you understanding that, for the most part, those attitudes, those not healthy attitudes that we end up seeing sometimes, when behind the screen, behind the door is really kindness and love, but men don't know how to get it out. Well, that's the same with a lot of people. So I think what I would say is, and it's not, she says it's not about calming self down. It's, it's about effectively dealing with the attitude. So for me, one of the things that I don't talk to the attitude, I talk to what I know is there beyond the attitude. So I don't want to give energy or credence to the attitude, to the unhealthy, negative, whatever attitude is. I talk to the what I know is behind the attitude. That's what I give attention to. I don't dismiss the attitude, but I don't let it be my focus, because if I let that be the focus, then that's the focus. So I change. And so, it's interesting. We were talking about young men and evolving, and you mentioned trust, Michael. I have a 25-year-old stepson, and he's been struggling. He's emotional, and he's been struggling forever with where he is in the world. He's a drummer, he's an artist, he doesn't like school, he doesn't want to pay bills, times he'd rather live in his car than live in a house. And he came home this weekend, and he found some music, which is giving him a purpose, it's giving him validation to express to people what he's always wanted to express, but didn't always maybe trust himself to express it. And he's clearer than ever. We had great conversations more than ever. And I came away with, Nick says we should all be a living prayer. And I came away with, wow, isn't that true? And I have to say that for this stepmother with a stepson, I was really wow, this is great. And so I've got tremendous respect for that. And I think, I just don't pay attention to the other part. I pay attention to what else I see and hear. So
beautiful.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, from a male perspective, again, in our culture, we're taught to, number one, focus on what some people might call hard skills. When I look at the lessons that I've learned over the last 10, 15 years, what I have come to know is more important than the hard skills are the heart skills, and being willing to find what makes your heart sing. And I think Joseph Campbell said it best when he said, follow your bliss. And when you follow your bliss, when you find that thing that lights you up, then I think when we pursue that, then, as he would say, the universe will open doors for you that were never there, that you couldn't imagine would have showed up. And a perfect example of that is, I never dreamed of being a writer, but it just so happened that one of my gifts is writing, and I absolutely love writing. And so when I'm writing, it's a creative outlet that allows me to focus on my heart skills, because I'm sharing stuff that I'm really passionate about. And I think that's where men are starting to move to. Rather than just say, I want the bigger house, I want the nicer car, I want the finer woman. Men are saying, you know what? I want my heart to feel connected to something.
Right.
And this is a new conversation for men to go there. But I think more and more men are beginning to wake up to that.
You say it's a new conversation. Yeah, I mean, it's probably conversations some men have had with themselves. But now when you have it with yourself, that's one thing. But when you see men living it, like a living, mechanism, a living, book, living meditation. And then, so now it's a conversation that we're using words for so that we can identify it. And let me just say, I put this quote on Facebook today to promote the show, and I love it. And I want to read it out loud. And it's by, it's Einstein. And it's, any man who can drive safely while kissing a pretty girl is simply not giving the kiss the attention it deserves. Albert Einstein. What do you think about that, gentlemen?
I love that. I love that.
He's pretty smart.
Isn't that intelligent or what?
Yeah, that's actually very deep if you think about it.
So what do you make of it? Tell me.
Well, again, go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I think it's related to the quote from somebody. It's an old proverb: "Never give a sword to a man who can't dance," which to me means, and both of those mean, masculine power is no good if it's no good if it doesn't have the heart, the sensitive, the emotional access with it. I mean, greatness happens when those two combine and then move out into the world. Otherwise, it's reckless damage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That was very good. What about you, Michael, what do you think?
Well, again, when I thought about that quote, I'm trying to imagine a guy driving a car, and trying to kiss a woman. Well, that's kind of like men. We're taught to try to multitask and do everything, but we're not really good at any one thing because we're trying to do too much at one time.
Right.
But what I recognize, or what I experienced as you said that, was the importance of being in the moment with whatever I'm doing.
Right.
If I'm kissing a woman, I want to be in the moment. I don't want to be doing anything else. I want to be in the moment, feeling the love, feeling the connection, just really in that moment with no distractions. And that's an important thing to do, I think.
Absolutely. And it shows you when you're comparing the driving to the kissing, what is the most important thing? It's the kissing. Right?
Absolutely.
It's the connection. Yes. It's that feeling that you get when you connect with someone, right? That's the most important thing, right? What do you think?
Yes. Pull over. You got to pull over.
Hell yeah. You know what? Let's start a movement of all cars pulling over and making a point of kissing, hugging, touching. Let's see a lot of cars pulled over.
Yeah, I mean, but just think about it. Think about high school. Perfect example, high school, of being in the back seat with somebody that you cared about for the first time. Remember the excitement of that? It's like the passion of that. It's like, oh man, it's so exciting. And so why would I want to be doing anything else when I can be in the back seat with this person that I care about and focusing all my attention on her?
I've been in many situations myself, because I have a very strong feminine side, but I have a very strong, masculine side, I guess you can say, whatever that looks like. And I don't know what they are anymore because they're all a big blur. But I know that when I avoid confrontation, not bad confrontation, because there's sometimes you have to confront something and it's, you do it from your heart and it's one thing. But when you do confrontation from your head, when it's, I know what happens when I shift into my heart and take it from the head to the heart confrontation. There's a feeling of flying. There's a feeling of juiciness. And there's a resolution that occurs that is really deep and beautiful and perfect, as opposed to when I have stayed in my head to deal with a confrontation. And then the outcome, just plain SUCKS's.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So
yeah,
same
absolutely.
Same for you?
You're when you're in confrontation from your head, it's totally uncomfortable and painful and you want to get out of it as soon as possible. When you're in confrontation from your heart, there's no hurry. This is kind of nice training, and it's training also. This is a place to be. Like this is life. Mm-hmm. And if they're in connection from their heart, the confrontation I think it ceases to be confrontation. It begins to be a dance.
Exactly.
And ideally a dance where everyone wins.
Exactly. I just had this thought, and then I'm going to go to Michael. I had the thought like, wow, how fortunate I am. I've done a lot of heart work, and I'm a licensed heart math provider, and it was my husband now, but my boyfriend 15 years ago who found this work that's all about coming from the heart, and he's the one that found it. But how fortunate I am today to be having a conversation with two men like this. I'm used to having conversations like this with women. And even, when Chris and I, Chris is our associate producer, when she and I post these things, we have to change even the way we're posting that, not coming from a woman, but coming from a human. And how fortunate I feel like I am today to be having this conversation, and I'm having it with men. This is fabulous. I can't tell. Yeah, go ahead. What? I can't tell you how this feels. Go ahead.
That just goes to show you how important this work is, because men are capable of having these types of conversations. Men are definitely capable of getting into that heart space. As a matter of fact, Tom and I, we have an online men's group. We've got men from several different countries, and we meet every 2 weeks online and have these type of deep, meaningful, powerful conversations all the time. Mm-hmm. So it's available for men. if they're willing to find or look for the resources to do this.
Yep. And I just want to pan down for a second. You really couldn't see my heart from.
What does it say? New York what? What's it say?
It's New York Presbyterian. It's the pillow. I had open heart surgery last April, and it's the pillow you hug when you cough, so you won't break open your chest.
Wow, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
You know, last week I did a show. I do a blab every Tuesday, and I do it on listening. And last week I did it on emotional intelligence, and it was incredible how many men were showing up. And we were talking about, you know, from a listening perspective, you know, listening our way in, listening our way out, whatever. And it was fabulous, the conversations and men were having. And so I say, like, let's continue these conversations. Let's talk to anybody you can talk to, regardless. And sometimes we have to take maybe a smaller, I don't call them small, freedom step into the conversation, but let's open it up because with anyone.
Yes, and that's a big point you just made. We could do a whole nother show on that, which is you start talking about emotional intelligence. Oh, intelligence, that would serve me. That would get me, like, that would increase my productivity. I'm interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, hey, come and open up your heart and you know, get more sensitive. Oh, for what? Like that's what we talk about sometimes on our, like, when we talk best practices. How do you put messages out there that actually get men who are in that piece of that sweet spot to say, oh, that's something I'd go to.
Yeah, attach money to it, prosperity to it.
Right, exactly. Or you know what? What's wild is if somebody's out there. There's people out there who teach men how to pick up women, and actually 50% of the program is fantastic. It talks about heart, it talks about connection, and then they get into, you know, only they'll go after insecure women. It's like, oh, geez, that's
you know,
you just lost me. But
yeah,
it's amazing that there is a real cool piece in there where they're teaching about connection.
And it's funny you would say that because this week's show I posted this morning, and obviously we hadn't spoken about, is about listening and prosperity, is what I posted for the follow up from last week. So touche to us. So we're almost out of time, but this is just out of time for today because we're going to bring them back again if Tom and Michael are willing. I'd love to have them back soon because I love talking like this. So in our final moment, Tom, where will our viewers find you? What will they find? This is your turn to do a little bodacious marketing.
Awesome. Well, it all is at Open, Deep, and True. OpenDeepAndTrue.com. If you go there, you'll see all my offerings, and yeah, I look forward to hearing from men in the sweet spot who are looking to make more money. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that goes along with it, doesn't it?
No, well, yeah, but also it's hopefully Michael and I gave a picture of men who are A, having a good time, and B, somewhat in our power, and C, like, I don't know what, but connected. So you know, if that's what if you'd like to get more there, then you know, step in somewhere, lean into it.
It's exactly. And leaning in is not just for women.
Yes.
And Michael, what about you?
Well, easy to find me online at CoachMichaelTaylor.com, and all of my other social media properties you'll be able to find from that particular location. And also for the listeners, if they're interested in finding out the 5 keys to turning your adversities into allies, which is based on my latest book, you can get a free video there. Just go on to CoachMichaelTaylor.com, put in your email address. I'll send you a free video called How to Turn, or 5 Keys to Turning Adversities into Allies, which is a really powerful piece for anyone who may be dealing with adversity in their lives right now.
Perfect. So I want to thank everybody that's been on the chat, everyone that's not on the chat, because I'm feeling your energy, I'm feeling your power, and so I thank you all for being here today. I want to thank Tom and Michael from the bottom of my heart, the top of my heart, the middle of my heart, for them being here. Namaste to both of you. I want to thank you for doing the work you're doing, because I know that the journey to here, to your heart, was maybe more complicated than from the heart out. And I often tell people, You know, when you're doing heart work, the heart is not going to scream at you. It's the journey to the heart. The head is always screaming at you. It's a lot sometimes easier to find in some regards, the head, because it's in your face. The heart is not. The heart is more of a gentle, soft spot, and you got to find it. But that's the beauty of getting in there and then utilizing it to find more. So I want to thank you both very much. I'm going to ask Tom if he will be willing to write for my book.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I would love to. I'll
Okay.
be on the show whenever you
All right.
whenever you need me.
Very soon, actually.
You're good at this, and it feels good.
Thanks. Very, very sooner than you think. So,
Awesome.
All right. And everybody out there, thank you so much for being here with us today. If anyone has any questions about an idea, or not a question, an idea for a show, you are a man, you'd like to be included in this book, want some information, let me know. Contact me at Marilyn at MarilynShannon.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Make friends with us, follow us, keep up with what we're doing because we are paving the way. So with that, thank you all very, very much for being here. We'll see you next week. Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVBI members, The Tanya Love Show, Your Healthy Pet with Gisela DiCarlo. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.